Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're playing some neutral Haven deck, I guess. That's what you'd want to call it. It's a pretty cross between a nice clearing Haven deck and most of the neutral package, which works pretty well, like the Happy Pigs and just a few techie cards that work well with just the board state and wards and neutrals in general. So my precious favorite of this entire deck is definitely Eagle Man. Just look at this guy. Is he not glorious? I mean, glorious Eagle Man. All hail the eagle, right? I hope. Anyway, we've got pretty solid deck, honestly. You could definitely run 3 Israfils. Of course, I only have 2, so I'm running 2, and then 1 extra Bahamut. I find an extra Bahamut actually works pretty well because I can use that more as an advantage in the late game, or even in the mid game when I want to take advantage of it with Darkquill anyway. So that actually works out pretty nicely. So it's a good little substitute for that. Otherwise, the rest of the deck is pretty simple and pretty standard for this kind of deck. I mean, you're running your gemstones and princesses and basically every single good card you kind of want. And Pure Annihilation is great for dealing with those Shadow, Forest, or Daria matchups where you just have a few followers of the same type on board at one time. So that works really nicely at getting rid of those. So we'll get right into it and check out some games. So first up for our games will be Haven. Haven mirrors are always enjoyable. I mean, whoever hits Aegis first wins most of the time, so I guess our aim is to hit Aegis as hard as possible. And we get the Darkquill and Double Globe. Dropping the Darkquill is probably the best choice, although we do draw Isra, which isn't much better, so Double Globes is the way to go. I mean, they say gold makes the world go round, and in this case, it's definitely true. Let's see what kind of amulets we can pull with this thing, and Tribunal straight off the top. The kind of draw that we really want with this deck, especially in these kind of matchups. And we already have the Black Inscription to deal with the Snow White immediately, so always feels nice when you have an immediate banish on Snow White. Especially since our Globe is already on board, meaning that every single turn is value really anyway, because it's always going to be getting closer to its activation, which is pretty valuable. So best choice of play, because we can't play anything else, is Globe into Carapace. 1 into 2 drop works out really well, especially considering our Globe is going to run out next turn anyway, so getting another one's just as good. And of course our opponent's going through it. Awesome Snow White plays that you see everywhere. I mean, you can't fault the Snow White plays, can you?
No! No!
So Pig gets to come down.
You're done for.
It's going to remove that Snow White pretty effectively and set up a really nice kind of board here. And we've already got a stocked up hand. I mean, just look at this. Saha, Isras, Eagle Man, Heavenly Aegis, and Lion Champion all in our hand. It's just looking golden right now. We could not ask for more warden removal than this, honestly. So ideally here, we want to remove at least one of these 2 cards effectively. And Ancient Lion is the perfect draw for that, being able to remove both these followers with a single evolve point. Works in my favour quite well. Especially when anything they play next turn is instantly killed by Tribunal, so they're going to lose something. Something they play is going to get less value.
I shall guide you to glory.
Jane, Beacon of Salvation. Sad but true. So I don't really have much of a play here other than throwing the Lion Champion to the board, because I don't really want to play any of my combo pieces, and I don't really want to use the Eagle Mans yet because I can still get the neutral value out of them. Because you can actually decrease those as low as 0, which is awesome. So if you do get a heap of neutrals and play them out in the right kind of order, you can actually set those up for a really good late game if you are struggling. But they still work pretty well in the early and mid game as well. I mean, playing them for 4 or 5 is a pretty acceptable stat line for that kind of card.
In the hour of crisis,
like, just look at this. Beautiful eagle. And we see the Heavenly Knight, which is going to be hard countered by this Heavenly Aegis next turn with an evolve to completely remove it. And we can pretty much send the Eagle Man face at that point for 4 damage. And then the Israfil becomes lethal on the next turn, pretty much regardless of what they play.
Let us conclude.
Because we just go into this Sakwell Israfil, trade into any kind of ward, and probably clear out most boards and deal a couple of damage. So it's a pretty easy way to set up a lethal. And our opponent obviously conceding is just as easy as winning. Next up on the chopping block is Rune. In particular, Daria Rune.
Is fighting and despair.
Daria has always kind of presented me a small problem because it's a pain in the ass to deal with most decks, but it's not impossible to counter. This deck does a pretty good job of it with heavy removal, so it's actually quite impressive to be able to deal with most reasonable decks. I mean, of course, Daria's high roll is pretty hard to deal with any deck at all. I mean, some decks it's pretty much impossible if they are high rolling on 4, but that luckily is extremely uncommon. You'll most commonly see Daria high rolls at about 6 or 7 in the more common bracket, 5 in the kind of rare bracket, and then yeah, 4 at the like super rare bracket. So usually you can deal with them well and truly into that kind of cycle. In particular, we're going to do quite well with this globe, being able to get all the value we've got so far. We haven't seen anything much from our opponent, so they basically gave us free reign to start setting up some of our cards here. Stuff like Pure of Annihilation is great because we can remove Ogglers or Chimeras with it. And of course, may as well get all these globes out while we can. Especially if we can stack the board with things like Happy Pig. Just look at that adorable little fella. Now we have Conjure Golem trying to come in to ruin our day a little bit. So it doesn't really matter what we hit here with Tribunal because I'm going to remove both anyway, so the 50-50 is basically a 100% chance to remove the entire board, considering Trading Pig was going to be played pretty much either way around. And we actually have a good draw next turn, along with the fact that we already have Sakwell in hand, which means we can use it with the Bahamut to clear out some kind of bigger threat. And of course we finally see an Ogler drop. Not that that's going to be a problem to deal with at this point. I mean, we've already got Black Inscription and a second Tribunal, which are going to be perfect, and we top deck and Israfil off that as well, so the Saha Isra combo is great for clearing these out. It's just so easy, I felt, to control the board in this matchup that it wasn't too difficult at all to win. I mean, they kept trying to throw stuff, but it really doesn't matter once you get to about turn 4 or 5 with this deck. Once you get to that and start clearing stuff, it's really hard for them to make a comeback. So we get the chance. I do decide to throw the Burly Axewill. I was just really wanting to get him out at this point, and it was neutral buff for the Eagleman. I could have easily went into the Saha Isra, but I felt like saving that for a more major turn, a more Daria oriented turn. Which luckily we don't really get to see. I think it's because I continually put threats like those Tribunals out, which really limits being able to swarm the board with Daria because you immediately lose something on that board, and that's a terrible thing for something like Daria to have to handle.
How interesting.
The sky is with you.
But by the time they do get to play something like Daria, it will have been too late. And because we drew Aegis, I felt like playing either was completely fine. I mean,
Crystals of snow.
throwing the Aether down, it was going to be the next best play. Would have been better with the Aegis, but once you draw it, you may as well play it out now anyway.
The eagle has landed.
You get to see the Chimera come down.
Was I helpful to you? Don't say
And they
I didn't
finally go
warn you.
all in with this Daria, so let's see where this takes them. So a full new hand, and looks like Golem Assault was the best play in that hand. I suppose because they accounted for the fact that Tribunal was an instant removal on one of these.
Been ages since
Didn't really matter where it went because removing one of them was going to be easy with this Aegis and setting up my win condition
the
basically
real
here.
battle begins.
Although you don't need Aegis to win some of your matches here, you can quite easily go with the Saha Isra, the Bahamut. Even Eagleman's Ward can be enough to really limit decks. Everything in this deck seems to work really well together, and it's actually surprising. It's just a deck I picked up off Twitter and it looked fun to play, so I thought why not give it a go. So going for the full Conjure Golem setup, which unfortunately Bahamut will easily clear out and allow me to go face with, so it's pretty great that Bahamut will just wipe this out. completely. And we actually get to keep and evolve Snow White, which that's pretty good really for value. Being able to clear the board and get a tier 2 follower as well left over, along with the 10-10 guaranteed. We actually ended up with more damage on board than we started with, so you can't really go wrong with that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this deck. I recommend giving it a go. It seems to be doing quite well on ladder at the moment, at least from my testing so far. It is fairly expensive because you do require a ton of legendaries to really get this thing to work. I mean, there's what, 6 here, another, I don't know, there's 9 just in those, plus the Bahamut, so there's 11. So we got 14 legendaries, I think. 14, no, sorry, 17 legendaries for this deck. So nearly half the deck is legendary cards, but I mean, that's what you got to do in Haven these days. Haven is a pretty heavy legendary class at the moment. I'm sure we'll see that change, especially with things like the Saha Isra package kind of rotating out and the Bahamut rotating out. We will see a pretty big hit to those, so probably this deck in particular will become less expensive and hopefully end up with some different cards to take those kind of slots. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. As always, deck list in the description below, and I will catch you guys next time. See ya.